Highland Perthshire, we're sitting at 1,000 to 1,500 feet. This is a grass farm producing beef cattle and sheep. My family have been farming here in different ways for a long time, many generations. Hi girls. The farm is a business, and the business is centred on selling livestock. Hi girls. It's a commercial outlook, and we have two income streams, one from the market, so we're trying to give the market what it wants, and one from the government. We try and give the government what it wants within reason. So trees fit into that in all sorts of obvious ways, whether it's carbon, whether it's biodiversity. From the livestock point of view, they fit in because animals need shelter, and they're only going to need shelter more in the years ahead. As our weather becomes more unpredictable, we don't know what way it's changing, but it's changing. Trees are crucial in that. These cows use those trees up there to sleep in every night, and bad weather, they're in there. So our experience with trees started off with just what is a conventional, rather boring looking shelter belt. And we realised when we took the fence down around it, how much the stock used the trees by being able to get inside the trees. The shelter that this woodland provided also allowed us to move from a hill breed of sheep to what might be viewed as a more commercial breed of sheep, producing a fat lamb rather than producing a store lamb. And that allowed us also to reduce the numbers on the farm, which gave us all sorts of management opportunities. We're getting better margin per ewe by producing a fat lamb off grass. So that's where we are today. We've changed our mindsets now to realise that when you're designing new shelter woods or new woodlands, it's perfectly possible to design them so the animals can use them right from an early stage, rather than wait 30 years until you're thinning it. This wee bit we're standing in here was really key in us changing our attitudes to what role trees could play on a farm. We've planted in the last few years much smaller groups of trees with really fairly minimal protection, but we've just used ordinary tree shelters and a hot wire to keep the cattle off, because cattle would really mangle this at this stage, and let the sheep graze through here. And it is possible to do if you're on wetter ground here, which is less of a draw to sheep, and it's a relatively low cost. We've done it all with our labour. That's the way to use old wool. There's alder, there's some white beam, there's birch, and trees that will survive some browsing damage. At lambing time, this can be a pretty grim, pretty brutal world. We're lambing outside, so shelter is good news at that time of year. The tree cover brings grass on early, and at altitude like this, that is worth weeks of grass growth. It's really important. Your animals are happier, they're going to perform better. It's as simple as that.
I'm Glasnant Morgan, and I'm lucky enough to be farming here on Pwllyrhwyaid, about 7 miles from Brecon. I started farming with my dad next door, but Linda and I moved here nearly 40 years ago. Sheep is the main enterprise, 800 breeding ewes and 200 replacement ewe lambs, producing about 1,100 lambs to sell. There's about 70 acres of woodland here as well, which I'm quite passionate about. And we're on the other side as well, and as you can see, that's all pollarded oak. And of course, you've got a continuous firewood with pollarding.
One of the ambitions of the Soil Association is to see an increase in the number of trees and hedgerows on farms across the whole of the UK. In the uplands in particular, agroforestry has so many advantages. For livestock, there are multiple health and welfare advantages. Regarding environmental protection, it delivers for biodiversity, for flood protection, and also for storing carbon.
When we came here, it had been run down, so we set about filling in the gaps with hedgerows. Years ago, you relied on the hedge as the boundary, so those were mostly thorn types. These days, you've got hazel, rowan, blackthorn, whitethorn. You've got the beech, you've got the oaks, you've got a variety of everything really. the amount of high hedges and small fields that we have got. It means we can lamb that little bit earlier than the average farmer and get our lambs to market sooner when there is a shortage, and then we get better prices as well.
A huge benefit of trees is in flood defence. The extensive root system can slow down the flow of water and infiltration, which then reduces the rate of the water flow downstream, preventing flooding in valleys.
The benefits of having good field boundaries are enormous, really. Every farmer should have a double-fenced hedgerow between neighbours, so preventing cases of TB through nose-to-nose contact. You can see here that the cattle have been browsing the hedge. Not only do they like the younger shoots, but they also get the minerals that the hedgerow produces, really. Keeps them healthy.
Sure.
It's like us humans, really. We like a little bit of everything, don't we?
Variety, that's right.
That's right, and by having a bit of variety, it keeps us healthy.
Hedgerows and trees have been found to have higher mineral content, so when livestock get access to browse them, that can enrich their diet. The high lignin content in tree fodder can also have anthelmintic properties, so help with intestinal worm burdens. And particular species, so willow has salicin in it, which is the active ingredient in aspirin, and so has pain relieving properties. So livestock have access to this whole medicine cabinet of benefits.
Because we've had a few very big oaks low down in the last few years, we've been able to use a lot of that wood to build up an old barn. We've had a gentleman in that's got a wood miser, and he's cut these oak timbers into lintels, beams for us. If I were to buy that oak, that would be thousands of pounds. So yes, it does help with profitability.
Having access to your own wood can save you money, so you can be replacing fence posts using your own timber, but also a key aspect in the uplands is access to straw for livestock bedding, and timber can provide wood chip, which is an excellent bedding substitute, so therefore you can reduce your straw costs by using wood chip.
You need to look at it on a long-term benefit. With the price of timber as it is, you'd be silly not to plant some of your farming trees for the future.
We have a small dairy herd. We have Jersey cows and we sell raw milk and yoghurt, and our male calves go into a little beef herd. So at the moment we have a little growing beef herd. We're part of a trial of 7 farms in Devon who are trialling Silvopasture, so grazing ruminants underneath trees. So we planted one of our fields with 2,000 trees, and we're going to start grazing them in about 5 years' time and find out how they enhance our farm and our animal husbandry.
Here at Lower Withecombe, we've got one of 3 planting designs that we're trialling across the Silvopasture trial, and this one's open grazed wood pasture. It effectively mimics natural succession by having small clusters of standard trees surrounded by groups of shrubs. So most of the field is still open grassland, and the trees will make up maybe 20 to 30% of the total area.
We can't rewild the whole farm, we don't want to. We want to produce really good food in an environmentally friendly way, and Silvopasture is the perfect solution. We see it already with hedges and trees that we've left to grow on the farm and what they can create for the animals in terms of browsing and protecting the grasses and the soils. The biggest challenge getting started was the fact that we thought it would be a much bigger job. It's actually been really simple. And then the next challenge we faced was the fact that we've lost 10 acres of grazing. And actually this isn't our most productive field, so it hasn't been a too big loss. And we're then thinking of other things that we can do with this field that will create income. We're thinking about running chickens on the field until the trees are established enough to graze our cows. In the long term, we're really hopeful that it will help our business Just by improving the soil health, we're improving the health of our animals and therefore we're improving the yield of our milk.
There's also a wider picture, which is we need to plant more trees, both for biodiversity and carbon, and we need to find ways that we can do it without jeopardising food production. And so to be able to introduce them into a farm where they're of benefit is a good thing.
I would say to anyone farming in the uplands, you've got to think about planting trees in some shape or form, because your stock are going to need more shelter because of the way our weather is going. You're also going to need to capture more carbon on the farm, and agroforestry makes sense because you don't necessarily lose your grazing long term if you're worried about that aspect. So it's a win-win situation.
We were a bit daunted by the idea of planting 2,000 trees and shrubs, but actually it was really simple. There was just 3 people and we did it in a week.
It's leaving behind something better than when you first found it. That's what it feels like. Whoa, beautiful. You're giving something back, aren't you?